everyone. Welcome to a brand new season of FS Fireside Streams, at home discussion between the FS team and a broad range of influencers, from macro thinkers and artists to changemakers and disruptors. I'm Pooja Khandelwal, the Content Strategy Manager at Fashion Snoops, and I'm pleased to be interviewing Roya Aghighi today, a Canadian Iranian designer. Roya Aghighi has been exploring with living materials as the fundamental element to reimagine and shift the emphasis from product to process. She has pioneered biogarmentry and creates clothes made from algae that turn carbon dioxide into oxygen via photosynthesis as a more sustainable alternative to fast fashion. Welcome to our Fireside Streams, Roya.
Thank you, Pooja, for your great introduction. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Roya, today we will be speaking in reference to one of our fall-winter 22-23 sentiments, reciprocity. Fueled by a new understanding of gratitude, this sentiment examines the shift in human perspective as we move in a direction to rebuild a mutually beneficial relation with nature. You know, the one where we collaborate and not corrupt. So with that said, Roya, your work personifies the principle of interconnected reciprocity so profoundly. Could you please give our viewers your background and tell us a little bit about biogarmentry and your work in broader scope?
Yeah, definitely. Starting from the beginning might take a little longer, so forgive me if I'm ranting a little bit here, but I always have been really fascinated with the power that designers have in shaping and reshaping the behaviors of human beings. And it was so heartbreaking to just watch this system constantly introducing more consumption-oriented habits instead of actually trying to reframe it to a more sustainable, modes of being. So I started to think about how can I actually take this responsibility in a positive manner and try to actually bring that agency and conscious thinking back to our day-to-day activities and decision makings. That was one side of starting to think about this project. From another space, or from another point, my mom used to be a fashion designer, and I grew up being obsessed with fashion and fashion design. And I believe that had a really big impact and influence on where I'm at right now at the current moment. But growing up and going to design school and design being taught in a very traditional way that you just pick a very linear and very immediate problem in the world and you address it with the most absolute fastest solution that's right in front of you to just get rid of it immediately, which is what we call a band-aid solution. And also coming across with like all the waste and crazy destructive patterns that fashion has into our environment and our future, I couldn't help but wanting to do something more, because I believe that us designers are, as I said, we are the frontliners of making and shifting those habits before they even exist. People may not even recognize they have a certain demand before they actually see that product in the market. So I start to be very critical of what's happening around us and thinking about, we certainly don't need another coffee machine that makes coffee 30 seconds faster or a smarter product in the world. So how can we start actually taking that 30 seconds that we are trying to gain, just pause and think about our day-to-day activities and so on. Another standpoint, I grew up in in Iran, which like in a city named Tehran, that like the air pollution gets to this hazardous level most times that you can actually feel the air pollution into your throat. And it tastes bad most times. So I wanted to actually get everything together and introduce this new reality for the future of what could it look like if our clothes were alive. Being obsessed with fashion, I wanted to introduce different ways of interacting with our clothing, which was basically the second skin of our body, and it's the most intimate relationship that we have with our objects surrounding us. If you think about it, It's on your body, it's hugging you throughout the day. And the longest that we think about our clothing is that in 10 minutes in the morning that we choose what to wear, or if you by accident, damage your clothes or something, and that's all. And it shouldn't be that way, I believe.
No, that's so true. And that is really something to think about. I mean, you bring up a very good point that it's something we live in 24 hours, and understanding where it comes from, where it goes, and maybe there should be more thought that needs to be put into it.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah. And I also agree with you about the pollution. So it does remind me of my hometown as well, my country that I come from. Yep, you can actually taste it and feel it. So
Yes,
I'm so
definitely.
happy someone's actually addressing it and doing something about it. So, however, was there any point that that triggered and you were like, okay, this is it. This is where I need to do something. I'm going to start biogarmentry, and what was it? Was there anything that
As I
happened?
said, the accumulation of everything and that huge responsibility on my shoulder as a designer, because I felt the responsibility. I believe that I should, or we all could do something about it that's different than what we're doing right now. And I started thinking about, what if we stop telling people what to do, which is what design is doing right now, and instead actually going into the fundamental behaviors, or what actually shapes our habits, of what makes us to make certain decisions versus the others, and go and actually work around that, and fundamentally shift certain habits that causes us to want to buy more and so on. Because if you think about it, fast fashion has been reprogramming human brains and behavior, in a sense that it creates this illusion of needing more. But do we really need more clothing? If you actually go into your closet and look at it right now, do you really think you need another shirt or jacket or pants? I'm not saying that we should stop buying, or we should just, sometimes it's like a really joyful action to do, but it has to be consciously done. We need to really take into consideration about the consequences of what we do and how it can actually affect the future. Um, Having all those in mind, I wanted to think about, okay, so what if we were like trees? What if we were portable trees in the society, in the environment, and by us just simply being present, we could leave some positive impact instead of actually only doing negative things, at least in the least amount. If we could only cancel out our own CO2 emission to the world, how would that be, and how could that make us, or be a trigger point for us to start thinking differently? So I started thinking about, okay, what if textiles were alive and photosynthesized as plants do, in order to make us actual living movable trees around the environment.
That is so beautiful, and that is so profound. So, that brings me to my next question. You make clothes out of algae that use photosynthesis. They turn carbon dioxide into oxygen. So tell us a little more about it.
Yes, so basically, I do consider myself as a multidisciplinary designer, and I do collaborate with different fields of practices and different experts all the time in order to make a more impactful and powerful aspect of the world. Because I believe that, us alone, or any different field alone, may not be able to actually make that impact. Think of it like scientists do really amazing, fascinating things all the time, but it stays in the archives of universities, and it's really harder for public to be able to access to those, or even come across to that point, to those points and so on. So I believe that, us together collaborating, collaborative work it could be one answer to a lot of struggles that we are experiencing right now. So I started to reach out to a lot of, being a design student at the time was actually pretty difficult, and that's where I started this. And I started reaching out to a lot of different experts in terms of biology, material science, and so on, to start to put those pieces of puzzle together, make a group, and make a first proof of concept. Because based on literature, it was possible, but in reality and in practicality, no one has had at that point actually done it before. I collaborated with a group of scientists and biologists and material engineers at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver, BC. And together we made the first proof of concept made out of algae, which is currently one of the best carbon absorbent from the air, and it produces a huge amount of oxygen by photosynthesizing. And we were able to actually make the first proof of concept, which I think the very first proof of concept was able to live a little over 30 days at the time, which
Wow.
is really exciting moment for me.
I'm sure. No, definitely that is one big accomplishment for sure. So tell us more about the material itself. What does it look like? How does it feel to touch? And how does one care for it? Tell us everything about its life cycle.
Yeah, definitely. So how it looks like, it can look like your normal shirt. So as of now, the research is still in the preliminary stages. We are still working to get it outside of the lab environment. And we've done some explorations in collaboration with Materials Experience Lab, which is located in University of Technology, TU Delft, which is a University of Technology in Netherlands. And together we were able to actually observe some of these samples outside, in a normal environment. Most people see my pictures around and they all think that, oh my God, this material has to be see-through like silk, but not necessarily. I get that question all the time. It doesn't have to be like silk. It can feel like your cotton shirt or anything else. So far we've been working with cotton, which has been the most promising substrate out of all. But we are still working to work with materials that have a lower negative impact on the environment, because when you think of cotton, yes, it's biodegradable and natural, but it actually uses a lot of great resources during the production of cotton and so on. So we are trying to actually figure out other substitutes. As I said, it feels exactly like your normal shirt that you're wearing right now. And in terms of visuals, the shirt starts with no color, and as it's getting activated and it's put right beside the sun and it's given the nutrients, it start to grow these beautiful green patches all over. And as days go by, these beautiful patches start to get bigger and greener, and finally you're going to have like a full shirt with like a full bright green color, and the color gets darker. And as the life cycle start to go towards the end of it, your shirt is going to lose its color, and that's like a visual indication of, you either have to revive it, you have to, I don't know, compost it, it's the end of the life cycle, and go on. It comes with an absolute different care instruction, which is another trigger point for normally the users, because you're not going to be able to wash your clothes in the washing machine anymore. You have to, spray yourself and hang them in front of the windows. And depending on the type of the material that you get, normally you have to submerge in the water once in a while, or spray water with nutrients and go on. So next time that you see someone in the subway or metro, I don't know what's in New York, here we call it SkyTrain. So next time that you see someone spray watering themselves, don't be super shocked, because they're actually taking care of their clothes. And to be honest with you, normally when I talk about this, I want to have a big emphasis on the fact that I'm not trying to introduce this material as a alternative to all the textiles that are out there, and oh my God, now we have to change to this, and it's going to make a huge shift and impact in the future and so on. That's not the point, because as soon as people start to think about it that way, it can become another problematic material in the world. My goal is to introduce some new material, some living material that can act and perform as a basically as a tool, as a trigger tool for people to start thinking about their actions and the consequences of what we do on our future. But that's the whole point, because if we
Yeah.
do that and we start actually fundamentally changing our basic habits towards like a very mundane behavior that we do every day of just putting clothes on or going to the shops and saying, oh my God, sale, like, definitely if it's like $5, I need 5 other shirts and so on. And those habits, so we actually, if we start pausing there, and if we start fundamentally reshifting all those behaviors and habits, then we have a higher chance of making that more sustainable and alternative future versus these new materials are all great because there are a lot of practices right now that they're doing upcycling, recycling, new materials made out of waste and so on. They're all amazing, they're all helpful, but again, they're scratching on the surface because
Hmm.
without actually changing our attitude and values, they're not going to last a very long time. And
Yeah.
this, desire of wanting more that's been reprogrammed in our DNAs these days by fast fashion and the whole
Yeah.
consumer society. I think it's
Yeah.
just that's more powerful, and it's just a matter of the quantity at this stage. As even if you find a really sustainable material by buying a crazy load amount of that, then you're doing something destructive again. So just because it's
Hmm.
compostable or naturally resourced and sustainably resourced, it doesn't mean that we can continue the same habits that we were doing.
Yeah. It's about changing your own thought process, to bring changes in the processes that we do when we create a product. So it all starts with
Exactly.
how we think, what we want with it, where are we headed. So it starts really at the core. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um,
Definitely.
Going back to the fabric, since it's photosynthesis, and of course, then that means we need sun. Does it mean that the clothing is not suitable for people who are indoor for most of the daytime or who don't get enough sunlight?
That's a very interesting question, because when we think about photosynthesis, we think of direct sunlight and all the time, like I don't know, maybe somewhere super sunny, like Mexico or something like that. But that's not the meaning of photosynthesis in say. So think of your plants. There are times that it's cloudy out there, but your indoor plants are still photosynthesizing, right? So it is the
Yeah.
same. It needs a minimum amount of sunlight or any light to be able to start photosynthesizing. And for example, I personally live in Vancouver, which we barely see sun here, so it's always raining. And that's a great point, because first of all, we are hoping to actually start expanding this research to different types of plant cells that are capable of absorbing different type of pollutant gases from the air. So that would be more suitable for people that, let's say, they have office job and they spend most of their daytime indoors, and basically they can choose a different type of biogarmentry collection for themselves. Or if you're a construction worker and if you are actually exposed to harsher environments with different type of pollutants in that very environment, then you might need to change some other type of a biogarmentry collection and so on. So we are in the process of that. But to answer your question, no, it doesn't need to be always sunny. It can actually do its job. And honestly, even if it could encourage people to go outside more or exercise more, that's another great
Oh,
point,
yeah.
which is, that comes with it. It was not obviously like a big part of my reasoning to start this project, but they're all chained together,
No,
because
that's
there are other studies that show that this type of algae can actually use our sweat as a type of nutrients. The very mineral ingredients that are in our in basically human sweat can actually provide surviving nutrients for the algae. So
mhm.
in that case, if you're really athletic, you can have like a healthier garment in a sense. Think of your garments from now on like your kids and pets.
Yeah,
Whatever
I was
you
just
do, you
going to
don't want to
say
kill
it's
them.
I was just going to say it's like having your own indoor plant that you wear on you, and that is just so beautiful. That's like taking this relationship with nature to another level altogether.
Exactly. You know what I always say, like this is like pretty much I'm sure you've heard of it before. I always say close your eyes and think of your what you're wearing right now being alive. If
Mhm.
that was true, then immediately it would change the way how you would think about it and the interactions or things that you would do. Maybe when you go outside and you see like when you go to the park next time, you're less likely to sit on a very rough surface bench, or you're less likely to just throw it into the corner of your closet in the dark, and you're not going to just put in a wash machine and carelessly
Yeah.
put in dryer afterwards, right? You actually have to care with it. And the concept of caring with is something else that I'm personally really interested to talk about, because um, caring with is a lot different than caring for. Caring for is what we are doing right now. We've been doing for a long time. We care for something, we take some actions towards it, and done and gone. We don't really care about what's going to happen to it in the next little while. But when we say caring with, it's the concept of constantly being conscious about basically what's happening to that thing that we have responsibilities around. For example, if I created this garment, uh, and if I bought it, I'm going to wear it. I'm constantly sort of responsible for its well-being. So I'm constantly caring with it. If I see that the color is a little fading and I'm not towards the end of the life cycle, that's a really great visual indication of, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I have to take a better care of it, or I have to take it to somewhere that they know what to do with it, and so on. And I'm hoping that all of all of those micro habits can actually fundamentally shift our core behaviors and
Yeah.
attitudes around fashion and so on.
I love that. I mean, I have written it down, caring with instead of caring for. I think
Yeah.
that's so deep. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, and everything that you spoke about the garment, it's like you need to develop a sentimental relationship with it. It's not just this piece of article that you wear and you go about your day. It's more than so much more than that. Yeah.
Definitely. Think about it in old days, back in the day, textiles used to be that way. Textiles were in people's heritage, it was passed down generation by generation. And people would repair, like, let's say, a jacket that was given to them by their great grandmother because
Mhm.
it had so much meaning to them that they would never want to give it up. They would never want to change it with anything else, and so on. And what I'm trying to say here is that if we would um, implement 5% of that mindset to our lifestyle towards anything that we have around us, then everything is going to change
Yeah. Yep.
significantly and a lot faster than just trying to introduce alternatives. Yes, those alternatives are great, but everything starts with us, not really what is given to us, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think about it, just because these textiles are actually alive and they require care and effort to remain alive, because I'm sure nobody wants to kill their garments. That's like a perfect
Nobody does. Yeah.
actually, in psychology they say that guilt is the number one drive of
Mhm.
human actions and what we do day to day. So basically, you don't want to be guilty of killing your clothes. So no matter how great you are in taking care of something, you would put the effort. You would want to keep it alive. You would want for it to survive and live. So in that case, you're not able to buy so many different type of clothes and just
Mhm.
accumulate, because each one of them require different type of care and requires your
Yep.
time and attention. So I'm hoping that aspect also can slowly but surely shift the fast fashion a little bit,
Yeah.
um, and make it a little slower.
So speaking of different types of clothes and different types of materials, when we speak of this fabric that you've developed, can we add details to it? Like, can we print over it or embroider or apply any other surface techniques?
Basically, as of now, well, yes, embroidery might be a possibility down the road because we've been working with a type of alginate that are self-repairing, so they can actually that might be possible down the road. But in terms of prints and everything, we are not trying to actually add anything different to the material for the possibility of not killing the living cells.
Mhm.
Having that said, we have been experimenting with some unique techniques in order to create different patterns um, within the textile, but using the algae itself, because as I mentioned before, it gets green and it gets it gets to different colors actually based on the type of algae that you use. um, and if you use those as a pattern, then it is going to only stay within that areas that you created the pattern and so on.
Okay.
So think of it as a very sustainable type of ink that lives.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. So this is so great, but what are the hindrances that you perceive, in the mass acceptance of this technology? Or rather, when do you see any big fashion brand or bigger fashion brands marketing their own living, breathing algae clothes?
Yeah, so the last phase of my project, which was in collaboration with Materials Experience Lab in Netherlands, was actually sponsored by Lululemon. So I
Mhm.
do see that, major brands are seeing value into futuristic materials and futuristic practices. I'm seeing it a lot. For example, right now, I know that a lot of top major brands are working with, the same type of concept to create like vegan leather out of sustainable materials that made and so on. So it's
Yes.
not really far away anymore. It used to be 10 years ago or 5 years ago when I
Yeah.
first started. It was still like down the line. But right now, I personally, for my material, I do forecast this to become possible or become a part of actual day-to-day life, maybe next to 7 to 10 years, um, for it to get to that level that we can actually produce it. But the market acceptance is already there.
That's awesome. You did mention about your current work where you are trying to develop biogarmentry into functional textiles. But could you tell us more about any of your other upcoming projects? And are you looking at exploring other microorganisms?
Yes, definitely. So that's like my next step. I'm hoping for new explorations of different type of, as I said, biogarmentry, in a sense that they can absorb different gases from the air. And my main area of focus has been ever in what materials can make us do, which is, in literatures and research has been done, called performative quality of material, and what they can actually um, force like influence us, is a better word, what they can actually influence us to do. And that's the main area of focus that is coming in future. Collaborating with some other fashion designers and researchers right now. And yeah, we are starting to we are starting our new projects very soon.
That is so exciting. I am so looking forward to this. And your work in general, Roya, it is so revolutionary and it's bringing newer depths to sustainable solutions. The way you blend human-made technologies with the intelligence of natural systems is simply mind-blowing and inspiring. And it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. On behalf of the entire FS team, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely great to be able to project, different mindsets into the world. And I guess you guys are doing a really good job at it. Thank you for doing it.